Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, Understanding the Quran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this segment of our series, we continue to look at the chapter of the Quran known as Al Kahf, the cave, the 18th chapter of the Quran. And we are now at verse 57. In the previous verses, Allah talks about those who reject the guidance when it comes to them. That they do so in a state of ignorance and foolishness. That they become mocking and scornful of the truth. But in the end, it is they who suffer. Allah continues to develop these signs or these explanations, these verses, these thoughts. He continues it in the 57th verse, saying,
وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِّرَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ فَأَعْرَضَ عَنْهَا وَنَسِيَ مَا قَدَّمَتْ يَدَاهُ إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ أَكِنَّةً أَنْ يَفْقَهُوهُ وَفِي آذَانِهِمْ وَقْرًا وَإِن تَدْعُهُمْ إِلَى الْهُدَى فَلَنْ يَهْتَدُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا.
And who is more unjust than one who turns away when reminded of the signs of his Lord, forgetting the evil he has done? Truly, I have put veils over their hearts and deafness in their ears, so they would not understand this Quran. And even if you call them to guidance, they will never ever be guided. After speaking about those who turned away from the guidance, who reject the signs, who develop false arguments to try to refute the truth, Allah then says, and who is more unjust than one who turns away when reminded of the signs of his Lord? And this person is the most unjust person. Injustice. When people think of injustice, when we think of injustice, it's somebody doing evil to somebody else. You know, we say this person is unjust. But when Allah speaks about injustice, though He speaks about this type of injustice, the type which He usually focuses in the Quran is the one where the person is unjust to himself. That is the greatest injustice. Because ultimately, all wrong comes back to this. You will find so many places in the Quran where Allah speaks about people doing wrong, and then He will say he has been unjust to himself or to herself. That the wrong that we do, the evil that we perpetrate, the sins that we commit, all of these are injustices that we do to ourselves. Why? Because ultimately all of it comes back to harm us. So whatever we do, yes, we may be harming others around us. It appears that way, yes, we're harming them. But the greater consequence of that harm, the reaction, because for each action there is a reaction. The greater reaction from this evil, this sin that we've committed, is what we meet in the next life. The hellfire. As I mentioned earlier, the hellfire will cause us to forget any good or any pleasure we ever experienced in this life. Where we dipped into the hellfire for a second, all good, all pleasure will be forgotten. And it will be as if we have never ever experienced any good. So, when we do evil and that becomes the consequence, then who are we doing evil to? Certainly we're not doing it to Allah. What about that person we're doing evil to? Well, if that person is patient, then that evil that we do erases sins from them. On the Day of Judgment, they can come back and take from whatever good deeds we have to repay the evil which was done to them. It becomes good. It becomes benefit for themselves. This is why when Adam's and Eve's sons, Cain and Abel, when Cain desired to kill Abel, Abel did not get into a fight with him. He said, I will leave it to Allah. And if you kill me, then you will carry that sin and you will also carry my sin. Meaning that on the Day of Judgment, I will be able to take my sins if you have no good left, because what's going to happen, as Prophet ﷺ said, that everyone who commits murder in this life, the sin of that murder will also fall on the shoulder of Cain, because he started it. He is the first one among us to do it. So he will carry a portion of the sin of everyone. So naturally what that means is that he will have no good left. He will have no good deeds. All wiped out. So when Abel, Habil, comes on the Day of Judgment to take back from him good deeds to repay the evil, the sin that he had done to him, there are no good deeds to take. So what happens? Then Abel takes from his evil deeds, whatever evil Abel did, he is able to throw that onto the scale of Cain. That's why Abel said to Cain, if you kill me, you will put the sin on yourself, and I will let you take that sin as well as take my sin. I won't fight back. I won't try to kill you. So, when we commit evil, as Allah says here, we in fact, when we turn away, because this is turning away from Allah's science, this is evil. Where the knowledge comes to us, we know what is right, and we turn away from it. Then we commit sins against ourselves. We are unjust to ourselves. And that is the greatest injustice. There is no injustice greater than that. And Allah goes on to say that while the person does this, they're forgetting what they have done, forgetting the evil that they have done, which is going to come back to them. In doing that, because of it, Allah goes on to say, truly, I have put veils over their hearts and deafness in their ears so that they would not understand this Qur'an. When they turn away, they have rejected. The truth has come. The Qur'an is before them. When they reject it, then Allah seals their hearts. Not that He has sealed their hearts and deafened their ears ahead of time, so they wanted to hear, they wanted to read, they wanted to understand, and then He prevented them from understanding, which of course would be injustice, would be unfair. No. Whoever seeks guidance, who want to be guided, who want to understand, Allah helps them. But for those who reject, the signs have come, the explanations are there, but they reject it. They don't want it. They're not interested. Evil is good to them, and good is foolish. So, when a person reaches that state, in fact, they seal their own hearts. They deafen their own ears. Allah refers to it as His sealing the hearts and deafening the ears, because ultimately it only takes place by His permission. And this sealing and deafening is the worst punishment that can come. It's the worst. Where there is no turning back, there's no way out. The person goes down that path and they just lock themselves into it there's no turning back. That's the worst thing that can happen to them. So Allah calls it, veils have been put over their hearts. Allah puts them. Allah permits those veils to take place. So even if the truth of the Quran comes before them, they can't see it. It's not comprehensible. They can't hear it even. The words are said, it goes into their heads, but it, as they say, goes through one ear, comes out the other. It has no effect. It has no real meaning. It sounds, who knows? So such a person, when they reach this state, as Allah said, even if you call them to guidance, they will never ever be guided. No matter how much you try, they will never be guided because they have sealed that path for themselves. In one way, this is Allah telling us that, there are some people, you take that message to them and they don't want to hear it. No matter how you explain it to them, they're not going to accept it. This is to remove from us the frustration that we might feel, as we're enjoined to convey the word of Allah to people around us. As Allah said in the Quran, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal mau'izati al hasana." Call to the way of your Lord with hikmah, wisdom, wa mau'izati al hasana, and good preaching. Teach the people using good methodology, using good words. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and discuss with them and debate with them with that which is better. Don't fall to their levels using curse words and all those kind of things. But in the end, guidance is not yours to give. You try to convey it, but ultimately it is with Allah whether they accept it or they don't. If they reject it, that is their choice. And if they've closed their hearts, that's their way. And you shouldn't worry about it. When we consider why don't we as Muslims today use whatever time we have, whatever opportunities we have to explain Islam to those around us. Why don't we do this? We find that, for the most part, people feel shy. Shy of what? Shy of rejection. That you would try to explain Islam to your colleague or to some friend or your neighbor or whatever, and they'll reject it. No thanks, I don't want to hear that stuff, I'm not into religion, please don't. Don't. The feelings of rejection, it's something humiliating. Nobody likes to experience that, Makes your skin crawl or shiver, to get to experience that. And so that makes us shy. Fear of rejection. But that's because we haven't really grasped our responsibility. And so Allah said, إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ وَعَلَيْنَا الْحِسَابُ. What is on you is to convey the message. And it is for me to take people to account. That's the whole story. We convey the message. Those who accept it, alhamdulillah. Those who reject it, masha'Allah. It is as Allah has willed. We shouldn't feel shy to be rejected. Because that rejection, if the person scorns us, says something, as Allah mentions here, their attitude or whatever, they reject it, slam the door in our face, and hang up the telephone, or turn away, or whatever, cut relations with us, whatever. There's whatever we suffer, whatever pain we suffer from that, that is reward for us on the Day of Judgment if we're patient with it. Allah rewards us. It's a small thing to suffer for the truth. And this is why Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, was the example, the best example of that. When he went to Ta'if, after the people of Mecca rejected him, rejected the message from him, tried to stop that message. He went to Taif, to his relatives, the relatives of his that were living in Taif. And he presented the message to some of the chieftains of the local clans in Taif. And they just rejected him. Right in his face, they just rejected it altogether. Not only that, but the children in the streets, they threw stones at him, etc., until his feet were bloodied with the blood coming down from different parts of his body as he left the city. Laughed at, mocked, stones thrown at him, etc. But that didn't dishearten him. In fact, as the Prophet ﷺ related, when the angel came to him and told him, listen, this is the angel of the mountains. Taif is in the mountains. If you wish, Allah can have these mountains come down on these people and destroy them. But the Prophet ﷺ said, no. No. Perhaps there will come from these people those who will believe in Allah and accept this message. And in fact, it did happen. People of Taif today are now Muslims. But that was the Prophet. May God's peace and blessings be upon him. He was not upset that the people didn't accept the message. He just used to just present that message. Whoever came to him, he took the message to them. And he patiently bore whatever rejection, whatever scorn was thrown on him. And that's the guide, that's the understanding, that's the way. In the 58th verse, Allah goes on to develop this idea of injustice, reward and punishment, and His mercy. He says there,
وَرَبُّكَ الْغَفُورُ ذُو الرَّحْمَةِ لَوْ يُؤَاخِذُهُم بِمَا كَسَبُوا لَعَجَّلَ لَهُمُ الْعَذَابَ بل لهم موعد لن يجدوا من دونه موئلا.
And your Lord is most forgiving, full of mercy. Were He to hold them accountable for what they have done, He would certainly have hastened their punishment. Instead, they have their appointed time from which they will find no escape. So though they will scorn and say, well, bring the punishment, no problem, we'll deal with it. Bring it on right now. Let's see what you have to do. Let's see what your God can do. Allah is most forgiving and full of mercy. He's forgiving to you for your sins. And if you're patient, He is merciful. He will use it as a means of replacing sins that you've done. Your patience with suffering is purification from sin. And He's still full of mercy that these people, Allah doesn't just snatch them and destroy them for the type of things that they say and they do. Instead, He will hold them to account. So they're not escaping, but He gives them an appointed time. If He wanted to hold them account in the full sense, He would have destroyed them right away. He would have brought the punishment to them in this life. However, Allah will make them completely accountable in the end, but He, through His mercy, allows them to live out their lives in disobedience, in rejection, creating harm for the believers. But ultimately, they will find their punishment. And as Allah said, instead they have their appointed time from which they will find no escape. And there will be no way out. Nothing that they can do can get them out of this situation. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on one occasion said to his companions, none of us would enter paradise just because of his or her deeds, were it not for the mercy of Allah. And the companions asked him, not even you, O Messenger of Allah? And he replied, not even I. This is the reality. Allah is most forgiving, full of mercy. He multiplies the righteous deeds 10 times and more, whereas the evil deeds, He only holds us to account one for one. This is the mercy of Allah. This is His grace. And He will hold people ultimately to account. But were He to hold us to account one deed for one deed, one good deed, we get one reward, one evil deed, one punishment, then none of us would escape punishment. We would all end up ultimately in hell. But through this grace, through this mercy of Allah, our evil deeds are removed by our good deeds. As Allah said, إِنَّ الْحَسَنَاتِ يُذْهِبْنَ السَّيِّئَاتِ. Good deeds erase evil deeds. So, it is by Allah's mercy that anyone will enter paradise. Though there is a connection with the deeds, in that Allah is merciful to those who strive to do good. Because those who are evil, are bent on evil, they've rejected the truth, etc., etc., His mercy is in their lives in that He allows them to survive, to continue, to enjoy, etc., in this life. But He is not going to erase their evil deeds and then put them in paradise for an evil life, a life of rejection and disbelief. That's the reality. So, Allah warns us that injustice is ultimately injustice to ourselves. That is the greatest form of injustice. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِّرَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ فَأَعْرَضَ عَنْهَا. There's none more unjust than he who turns away when reminded of the signs of his Lord. He's unjust to himself. He has closed the door of guidance for himself or herself, and they ultimately will realize this in the next life when it is too late, that they have only harmed themselves. Whatever evil we do is against ourselves. Whatever good we do is for ourselves, ultimately. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, Understanding the Quran, where we have been looking at Surah Al Kahf, the 18th chapter of the Quran, known as the Cave. We hope to see you in our coming segments. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.